Listen to me closely, because what I'm about to tell you may change the way you see yourself forever. Men are not drawn to what clings to them. They are drawn to what stands unshaken. A man may enjoy attention, but what he cannot resist is a woman who is free. A woman who knows that her worth is not tied to his response. A woman who can love without losing herself. Detachment is not coldness. Detachment is not silence. Detachment is not pretending not to care. Detachment is power. It is saying, I can love you deeply, but I will not lose me in the process. That, right there, is irresistible. When you detach, you are telling the world, I am not afraid to lose what was never meant to stay. And men feel that. They feel it in the way you walk into a room without searching for eyes of approval. They feel it in your laughter that does not wait for their validation. They feel it in the calm assurance that radiates from you when you refuse to chase what is not chasing you. See, a man's nature responds to freedom. The more you hold loosely, the more he leans in. The more you grip tightly, the more he pulls away. That is not manipulation. That is alignment. Because true love cannot breathe in an atmosphere of desperation. It only thrives where there is choice, where there is space, where there is mystery. A woman who detaches is dangerous in the best way. Because her identity is not in his hands, it is rooted in her spirit. She is not bargaining for affection. She is not competing for attention. She is not exhausting herself trying to prove her worth. Her worth was set before he even arrived. And here's the revelation. Men cannot resist what they cannot control. When you detach, you remove the strings. You are no longer a puppet to his moods, his attention, his inconsistencies. You stand firm like a tree planted by living waters, unmoved by temporary storms. And that steadiness, it is magnetic, it is divine. Understand this, detachment is not rejection. It is redirection. It is telling him, you are welcome in my life, but you are not the source of it. It is showing him, I can enjoy your presence, but I am not empty in your absence. That kind of posture awakens pursuit. It commands respect. It ignites desire. Because when a woman no longer begs to be chosen, she reveals she already is, chosen by God, chosen by her own spirit, chosen by her purpose. And that truth, it shakes a man. It reminds him that love is not ownership, it is partnership. Detachment is not the absence of love, it is mastery of self. Too often, people confuse letting go with not caring, but that is a shallow understanding. Detachment does not mean you stop loving. It means you love from a place of freedom instead of fear. It is the ability to hold someone close without clutching so tightly that you suffocate both yourself and them. When you master detachment, you give love its purest form, a gift, not a demand. Think about it. When love is tied to fear of loss, it becomes control. You cling, you worry, you manipulate, because deep down you're terrified of what will happen if the other person leaves. That is not love. That is dependency dressed up as devotion. Detachment breaks that cycle. It says, I choose you, but I am still me. I give you my presence, but I will not give away my soul. That is not coldness, it is clarity. A woman who embodies this principle understands that her peace is the highest form of wealth she carries. Her love flows because she wants to give it, not because she's afraid of being abandoned. That energy is powerful. It shifts the entire dynamic of a relationship because she no longer operates from lack. She does not need to beg, chase, or compromise her dignity to hold someone's attention. Her love becomes stronger precisely because it is not chained by fear. A woman's power rises when her peace is non-negotiable. There is something unshakable about a spirit that refuses to trade its calm for chaos. Peace is not weakness. Peace is strength under control. When you make your peace the foundation of your life, you no longer bend to every storm that comes your way. You stop allowing the moods, opinions, and behaviors of others to dictate how you feel inside. That is when your power starts to speak without words. Men and people in general are drawn to stability. They may be entertained by drama for a moment, but they are anchored by serenity. A woman who has guarded her peace communicates a message without ever having to raise her voice. I am not moved by what you do because my center is within me. That steadiness is magnetic. It is not about indifference, it is about self-possession. She knows that nothing external should ever have the authority to disrupt her inner state. When peace becomes non-negotiable, boundaries follow naturally. You stop entertaining disrespect because you recognize how costly it is to your spirit. You stop forcing connections because you would rather be alone in peace than partnered in turmoil. You stop over-explaining yourself because you no longer seek validation from those who do not value your presence. And it is in that firmness that your light shines brighter. Peace is power because it cannot be faked. It comes from within, from knowing who you are, whose you are, and what you will no longer accept. And when a woman holds that line, when her peace is her treasure, men feel it immediately. They sense that they cannot shake her easily, and that very assurance awakens both respect and desire. Detachment signals confidence because it shows you are not ruled by fear of loss. The moment you release the need to hold someone tightly, you demonstrate that your identity and wholeness are not tied to their presence. That kind of freedom communicates strength on a level words cannot capture. It says, I am with you because I choose to be, not because I cannot survive without you. Confidence flows from that place, because nothing feels more powerful than knowing you will remain intact no matter who stays or goes. Fear of loss is what drives desperation. It makes a person overextend, overgive, and overcompensate because they believe that without this relationship, they are incomplete. But when you detach, you strip fear of its grip. You begin to operate from abundance instead of lack. You know that love should be mutual, not forced, chosen, not begged for, and that quiet assurance is what others find irresistible. A woman who walks in this confidence radiates a presence that cannot be ignored. She doesn't chase, she attracts. She doesn't cling, she allows. She doesn't fold under pressure, she remains steady. That is the energy of someone who understands that real power is not in controlling another person's decisions, it is in mastering her own. This confidence born from detachment also shifts the dynamic of relationships. Instead of being anxious about every word, every text, every action, she rests. She trusts that what is meant for her will not pass her by. And that rest is exactly what creates allure because it sets her apart. A woman who is not enslaved by fear of loss becomes unforgettable. She is free, and in that freedom, she becomes the kind of presence no one wants to lose. A man is magnetized by what he cannot control, and detachment removes control from his hands. When a woman is fully attached, clinging and seeking constant reassurance, she unintentionally gives a man the upper hand. He knows her emotions rise and fall based on his choices, his attention, his words. That kind of predictability dulls attraction because there is no mystery, no challenge, no sense of depth to pursue. But the moment she detaches, the energy shifts. She steps out of his grasp, not in anger or punishment, but in calm assurance that her worth is beyond his ability to dictate. Control thrives where there is fear. If a man knows you fear losing him, he can set the terms of connection. He can withhold, delay, or give in pieces, and you will still wait because your heart is tied to his every move. Detachment breaks that cycle. It says, I am not afraid of life without you. That statement alone, even without words, is a force he cannot resist. Suddenly, the dynamic flips. He begins to realize he cannot sway her spirit, cannot bend her will, cannot pull her into emotional chaos at will. And that unshakable presence becomes magnetic. What a man cannot control, he must respect. What he cannot easily access, he must pursue. Detachment creates this atmosphere not by playing games, but by being authentically grounded. A woman who is detached shows that she belongs first to herself. She can share her time, her affection, her energy, but she is not handing over her center. That boundary forces him to meet her differently. Instead of trying to control, he must choose to cherish. and it is in that space where attraction deepens, because nothing is more compelling than a woman he cannot conquer. Emotional independence is spiritual elevation. It places God, not man, at the center. When a woman learns to anchor her heart in something higher than human affection, she steps into a realm of peace and strength that cannot be shaken. She no longer looks to a man to complete her or define her worth, because she understands that her identity was already spoken into existence by the one who created her. That shift from dependence to divine alignment is where true freedom begins. When emotions are tethered only to another person, life becomes unstable. One wrong word, one absence, one disappointment can send the heart into chaos. But when emotions are rooted in God, there is steadiness. Love can still be given and received, but it is no longer worship. It is no longer desperation. It becomes partnership instead of survival. That difference is profound because it means her joy is not contingent on someone else's behavior. Her spirit remains lifted, her purpose remains intact, her peace remains guarded. This kind of independence does not push love away. It actually purifies it. Because she is not loving from lack, she is loving from overflow. She is not grasping for validation. She is extending what she already carries. And men feel that. They feel the weight of a woman who is whole within herself. It commands respect because it is rare. Most people seek to fill voids with relationships, but a woman who has placed her heart in God is already filled. That elevation is irresistible. It communicates that she is not ruled by temporary emotions or fragile attachments. She belongs to a higher order, a deeper truth, a divine authority. And in that state, she cannot be controlled because she has already surrendered to the only source worth surrendering to. Detachment protects dignity by refusing to beg for what should be freely given. Love, respect, attention, care, these are not things a woman should ever have to plead for. They are either offered willingly or they lose their meaning. When a woman understands this, she no longer chases after scraps of affection. She realizes that begging for love does not bring intimacy, it only breeds resentment and diminishes her value in the eyes of the one she pursues. Detachment becomes her shield, guarding her dignity from being traded for temporary comfort. To beg is to lower the standard of what your soul knows you deserve. It is to accept less in hopes that a little will be enough. But the truth is, begging for love never satisfies. It only deepens the emptiness. Detachment interrupts this cycle. It says, if you cannot give me respect without being forced, I will not stay here trying to earn it. That posture is not arrogance. It is self-preservation. It is an act of honoring the worth that God has already placed inside of her. Dignity thrives where detachment is present because it refuses to cling to anyone unwilling to give freely. It removes the illusion that chasing harder will change someone's heart. It silences the need to prove, to plead, to persuade. Instead, it allows love to flow only from authenticity. And when a woman carries herself this way, it is impossible not to notice. She becomes the standard in the room, the one who will not compromise her crown for attention. Men sense this immediately. They recognize that her presence is not desperate, it is deliberate. She does not beg because she knows she is the gift, and that quiet confidence rooted in dignity is what makes her unforgettable. The more a woman clings, the more he pulls away, the more she releases, the more he pursues. This is not about playing games, it is about understanding the natural rhythm of who man desire. Clinging creates pressure, and pressure suffocates love. When a woman holds too tightly, constantly needing reassurance, constantly demanding presence, it overwhelms a man's spirit. Instead of drawing him closer, it triggers his instinct to create distance, to regain the space he feels has been taken from him. What was meant to be intimacy becomes a burden, and attraction begins to fade. But when she releases, when she loosens her grip and allows the connection to breathe, everything shifts. Releasing does not mean indifference. It means trusting that if the bond is real, it will stand without being forced. It communicates strength, a quiet assurance that her life does not collapse without him. That freedom awakens something in a man, because now he feels he is choosing her, not being trapped by her. Choice fuels pursuit while pressure kills it. A woman who can release with confidence becomes magnetic. She no longer texts in panic, waits in anxiety, or measures her worth by his responses. Instead, she lives fully, stands firm, and lets her presence speak louder than her grasp. This creates space for mystery, for desire, for pursuit to be genuine rather than obligatory. Men are drawn to what they feel they could lose, not what they feel entitled to keep. Releasing restores that truth. It allows him to experience the joy of pursuit and the privilege of winning her attention again and again. And the irony is this: the moment she stops clinging, he starts reaching. The moment she releases, he begins to hold on tighter. That is the hidden power of detachment. Detachment is the proof that love is a choice, not a chain. When a woman practices detachment, she shows that her connection to a man is born from freedom, not captivity. She is not there because she has no other option, nor because she is bound by fear or dependency. She is there because she chooses to be. And that kind of love carries a weight that chained attachment never can. Real love requires freedom. Without it, affection turns into obligation, and obligation eventually drains the joy out of any relationship. When love is a chain, it is marked by anxiety. Every action feels like survival. Every silence feels like rejection. Every distance feels like abandonment. That kind of attachment is heavy. It suffocates both the giver and the receiver. But when love is a choice, it breathes. It allows space for individuality, space for growth, space for imperfection. Detachment creates that space because it signals that while she values the relationship, her soul is not enslaved by it. This posture shifts the balance entirely. A man can sense when a woman is with him out of desperation versus when she's with him out of deliberate choice. Desperation repels, but freedom attracts. A woman who chooses love without being chained by it communicates confidence. I am whole already, and I share myself with you, not because I must, but because I want to. That is powerful beyond words. And it is precisely this freedom that deepens connection. The absence of chains makes love sweeter because it is not coerced, it is given. Detachment does not kill love, it purifies it. It transforms it from fear-based attachment into sacred partnership. And that is the kind of love no one wants to lose. When a woman detaches, she creates sacred space, space that demands respect, admiration, and pursuit. Closeness is beautiful, but when there is no breathing room, love begins to suffocate. Constantly being available, constantly pouring, constantly waiting, leaves nothing to the imagination, nothing to inspire pursuit. Detachment restores that sacred distance, not as a wall, but as a boundary. It tells a man, you are welcome in my life, but you do not own all of me. That subtle separation is what awakens desire, because desire needs room to grow. Sacred space is where mystery lives. It is where a man is reminded that he cannot take her for granted, that she has a world of her own, and that being part of it is a privilege, not a right. A detached woman does not rush to fill silence or chase after his attention. Instead, she allows moments of absence, moments of wonder, moments where he has to reach for her. That reaching is what fuels pursuit, and pursuit is what keeps attraction alive. This space also communicates value. It says, I am not afraid to be with you, but I am also not afraid to be without you. That kind of posture commands admiration. It shows that her worth is not measured by how much of herself she gives away, but by how wisely she protects what is sacred. Men instinctively respect boundaries that are held with quiet strength because they understand that anything easily accessed loses its value. Detachment does not diminish love, it elevates it. It ensures that affection is exchanged with reverence, not entitlement. When a woman holds that sacred space, she becomes unforgettable. She becomes the one who inspires pursuit because she has taught him that her presence is a gift, never to be taken lightly. A detached spirit communicates, I am whole with or without you. That simple truth carries a power that no words of persuasion can match. When a woman embodies this, she is not saying she does not care, nor is she denying her ability to love. She is declaring that her identity, her joy, and her peace are not dependent on anyone else's presence. Wholeness means she has already filled the gaps within herself. She is not waiting for a man to complete her story. She is already complete and inviting him to join a narrative that is thriving on its own. This wholeness changes everything about how she is perceived. A woman who is whole is never desperate. She doesn't chase because she doesn't need to. She doesn't settle because she knows what she carries. She doesn't fear loss because she trusts that losing someone does not mean losing herself. That assurance radiates confidence without arrogance. It simply says, I am enough. And men are drawn to that. They are compelled by it because true strength has a gravitational pull. When a woman is whole, she can love more deeply, not less. Her love is not about filling a void, but about sharing an overflow. This makes her presence nourishing instead of draining, generous instead of needy. She adds to a man's life without trying to extract her worth from him, and that balance makes her irreplaceable. Wholeness also sets the standard. A man quickly understands that he cannot offer half-hearted attention or broken promises because she does not need him to feel alive. She is already alive, and from that place of fullness, her love becomes a gift, not a plea. That truth makes her unforgettable because wholeness is the essence of true feminine power. Men cannot resist the mystery of a woman who is free in her soul. Freedom is magnetic because it cannot be controlled, and mystery is irresistible because it cannot be fully understood. When a woman is free, she does not bind her worth to how much attention she receives. She does not live in fear of being abandoned because her identity is not built on someone else's presence. That kind of freedom creates an aura, a quiet energy that says, I belong to myself first. It is that very energy that awakens curiosity in a man because he senses that she is not easily possessed. Mystery does not mean being secretive or playing games. It means she has depths within her that cannot be accessed by flattery, manipulation, or pressure. She reveals what she chooses, when she chooses, and only to those who have proven worthy of trust. That restraint makes her more captivating than someone who offers everything all at once. A free woman understands that not everyone deserves full access to her heart, her time, or her spirit. And that boundary creates an allure that draws men closer, not because she withholds, but because she values herself. A woman who is free in her soul lives beyond the need for control. She can enjoy love, but she does not demand it for survival. She can walk alongside someone, but she does not collapse if they walk away. That balance is rare, and men instinctively pursue what is rare. They are intrigued by the challenge, by the beauty of someone who cannot be caged. It is not rebellion that creates this effect. It is peace. It is the calm assurance that her spirit belongs to God and herself first. And that divine freedom is impossible to resist. Detachment shifts the dynamic from chasing validation to embodying value. When a woman is attached in fear, she looks outward for approval, measuring her worth by how much attention she receives or how consistently someone affirms her. That cycle is exhausting because it makes her identity dependent on the ever-changing moods and actions of another person. But when she practices detachment, everything reverses. She no longer needs to chase validation because she understands she already carries value within her. She moves from seeking to being, from begging to embodying. Validation is temporary. It satisfies for a moment but leaves her hungry again when it fades. Value, on the other hand, is permanent. It is not handed to her by someone else. It is discovered within and expressed outwardly. Detachment allows her to rest in that truth. She begins to live in a way that says, I know who I am, and I will not reduce myself for acceptance. That self-possession is what captivates others because nothing is more compelling than someone who knows their own worth. This shift also redefines how relationships unfold. A woman who chases validation attracts partners who exploit her need, but a woman who embodies value attracts partners who rise to meet her standard. She no longer entertains half-effort because her life is already full. She no longer fears walking away because her dignity is more important than temporary attention. That balance transforms her presence into something powerful, something magnetic. Men respond differently to a woman who embodies value. They sense that she does not need them to feel whole, and that absence of need is what draws them closer. Detachment creates this shift, turning her from seeker into standard, from pleader into prize, and that transformation cannot be ignored. Detachment is not the absence of love, it is the presence of power. It's the decision to no longer trade your worth for attention, to no longer beg for what should flow freely, to no longer shrink yourself in the hope of being chosen. Detachment is the return to wholeness, the reclaiming of peace, the reminder that you were complete before anyone entered your life. And hear me clearly, when you detach, you do not lose love. You refine it, you purify it, you elevate it, because love without freedom is not love at all. It is fear wearing a mask. When you stand rooted in your own identity, when your joy is guarded, when your spirit is free, you become a force that cannot be ignored, a presence that cannot be replaced, and a woman that no man can resist. So walk in it. Own it. Let your detachment speak louder than desperation. Let your peace set the standard for how you are treated. Let your confidence remind the world that you are the prize, never the beggar. You do not chase, you attract. You do not plead, you embody. You do not fear, you choose. And when you choose yourself, you unlock the kind of power that turns love into partnership instead of chains, respect into the foundation instead of an afterthought, and your presence into something unforgettable. That is the power of detachment. That is the power of a woman who finally realizes she was whole all along.